My name is Fatima Ali. I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada. My grandparents on my father's side are from Barbados, and they emigrated here in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And on my mother's side, they're from Nova Scotia. And both my parents are Canadian, and they met and got married here in Montreal. And my parents are Christian. I have two brothers. One brother passed away about 12 years ago. And our family was very spiritual, or I want to say religious, like very practicing, as my father's mother was the matriarch of the family. And she basically was the one who kept the religious vibe happening in the entire family. She was very God-centered, very focused, church-going person, but not a deep or a very spiritual person, you know? Had her beliefs, had her faith, but wouldn't say like strict type of person. And this is the type of environment, you know, that our grandmother created, where she always had instilled this belief of God within the entire family. After she passed away, we moved from one part of the city to another part of the city, and we continued to go to church a bit. So our entire family, like my dad's siblings, most of them are part of the church. It was the Union United Church, which is the oldest black church here in Montreal. It's basically the church that I grew up in from a young age. My mom also comes back, her background is also a church going family. But after my grandmother passed away, after a few years, we didn't go to church as much. And then eventually it stopped, you know, we just didn't go to church. But the way my parents raised me, even though we weren't going to church, my parents always raised me, if you want to say, with good Christian values, which is one of the reasons why I was attracted to Islam, because the values by which they raised me were very, very close to the akhlaq and the values that you find in Islam. So it wasn't this big shift going from Christianity to Islam. It was just say Christianity is here and Islam was there. That was it. Then later on in years, my mom started going back to church a little bit more. My dad he's never wanted to really go back to church, but he always believes in God. What happened was, when I was around 8 or 9 years old, my older brother, I was listening to a song by Stevie Wonder, and in the song he was talking about some of the accomplishments that people of African descent had made or had done. And I was astounded because I didn't realize all the positive contributions that Africans had made to society, because at that time everything was so negative about black people. It was just, you know, you just always heard the bad. So I asked my brother, I said, is this true? And then he said, yeah, of course. And then that's when my journey of learning about having a better, stronger sense of my identity started. He gave me some history books, so I started from there, reading about black history, African history. And that happened for maybe a decade, probably more than a decade actually, till I eventually came across the autobiography of Malcolm X. And that's exactly what started my path onto the journey of Islam. But before that, my mom had always tried to encourage us to be involved in the black community. My mom's, I wouldn't call her an activist, but she's always a community worker. She's always working in the community, always doing something. So even before I became Muslim, the work that I did do in the black community was either supporting my mom in any of her projects or doing things specifically related to the youth. That's really what one of my passions is working with the youth. So, like I said, I started to read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and when I read that, it resonated with me. And when I got to the end of the book, when he went for Hajj, that's what really sparked the biggest interest in Islam. Because I was like, what is this thing, or what is what is the attraction for all these people around the world to go to this place where there's this, this cubic building, and people are walking around it and saying all these things. I don't understand. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I said there must be something about this place and about that building. So that's what started me on my path. I started doing more research, started questioning. I was visiting the Nation of Islam, going to some of their meetings and trying to understand what the difference was between what Malcolm X was talking about in the end of his book, and then what it was that the Nation of Islam was preaching, and what it is that Malcolm X veered off towards. Because obviously there was a split between Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam. So started doing more research, asking questions, and then one day I was in university and I was filling out my schedule, and I had a 2 or 3 hour break on Tuesday and a Thursday, and I was deciding whether I should just use that time to study or if I should try and fill it with another class. So I was looking through the course schedule and there was nothing that fit. So I was looking through and I said, okay, never mind. And then I turned the page, and in the course schedule there was, under the religion section, there was a class on Islam, and it fit exactly in my break time of Tuesday and Thursday at the same time that I had a break. So I decided to take that class. And the class was interesting in the beginning, but of course it was somebody, a non-Muslim, who was teaching it. And I got the sense after that there was something missing. A lot of the historical information was good, but I said there's a main component that's missing, and I started to get bored with the class. So what happened was, one day I was out in the shopping mall, and I saw my sister-in-law's brother, and he was with one of his friends. And we just started talking, and then I started talking to his friend, and then we're talking about music and different things like that. And I asked him to make me a cassette of Billie Holiday. And he said sure, and I spoke to him, and then I came to find out that he was Muslim. And he knew about the Nation of Islam, and he was on this path, and I started asking him questions, and then he introduced me to these other two brothers, and they gave me some books, and the first book that one of the brothers, Brother Jamal, gave to me was Then I Was Guided. So obviously I wasn't Muslim yet, but I started reading the book, and I understood the general sense of the book. Obviously I didn't understand the differences between the schools of thought and all the history, but I got the general essence of the book. It was very interesting. So my questioning and my reading and studying went on for about a year. And at that same time, my older brother, the same one who had given me the history books, he happened to be in Saudi Arabia working there with his father-in-law. And he was coming home at Christmas one time, and he called me, or he called the family, and he said, I'm coming home for Christmas. He says, is there anything that you want from Arabia? And I was like, I don't know, like, I've never been there. I don't know what to ask you for. He says, well, is there anything you'd like here? And I was like, bring me a Quran. And he said, okay. So he brought me a Quran, and it was the Yusuf Ali translation. And I took the Quran and I just put it up on my shelf, just left it there. That was December. Then in June, or probably maybe May, June, I took the Quran down and I opened it up to the front page, and the introduction was a poem about the life of Prophet Muhammad. And after I read the poem, I said, that's it. I'm going to become Muslim. After I read that. So I called Brother Jamal and I told him that I would like to, become Muslim, make my declaration. He started yelling and screaming on the phone, and I didn't know what the problem was. I thought he was upset because he started talking in Arabic, and and he was yelling and screaming, and I was like, oh my gosh, I upset this brother. But then he said, no, he said, I'm so happy, and this and that, and he started explaining to me what I have to do. So we decided that I was going to do my shahada, and I chose a few people that I wanted to be there, and we did it Sunday morning in the park. My mom realized that I was changing, something was going on. Before I became Muslim, I actually started covering my head more like in the African style, not with what we would call hijab. But I just said, I wonder what this is like. So I started trying to change my dress around a little bit. And even though I had just was doing like African wraps with my head, I noticed there was a change the way men would approach me or look at me. And I was like, okay, wow, this is different. And Brother Jamal had come to my parents one time, and he was answering their questions that they had. And I was talking to my mom and explaining to her that I was, thinking about going down this path and whatever. And like I said, my parents weren't really so practicing, and their only big concern was about, the beliefs that they have about Nabi Isa, Isalm. So my mom was concerned, well, you don't believe in Jesus? And I said, yes, we still believe in Jesus, Mom, and things like that. But she said to me one day, she said, I don't understand everything that you're doing, but I can't really fault you for what you're doing, because there's nothing in your actions that I can look at and say that they're bad, or something's wrong, or that you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. You're not running around with guys, you're not drinking, you're not doing drugs, you're not out late and doing all these kind of things like you're settled. And she says, I can't point at anything and say this is wrong. So she said, her only wish was that she would have been with me in the park that day when I took my shahada. She said, and I was debating with myself, should I tell her or should I not? And I had that 5% doubt. I said, what if she tries to stop me? What if she comes and, creates a doubt in my mind? So I said, I'll tell her after. And then she said, I wish you would have told me. Like, I would have liked to have been there and at least to see what was going on and, support you. So, but outside of that, after that, it was a bit of a struggle. My friends, the people that I've been friends with since I was a teenager, we're still friends, still the same. They recognize, for them, the way I dress has changed, and certain things, the way I eat and things like that have changed, but they're like, you're still the same person. You haven't really deviated from what we've known of you all this time. Just that there's different external things about you that are different. But I think probably the hardest thing was some of the people, we had a nice group of brothers and sisters that were around with each other, and then there was some fitna that started up amongst the group, and then some people they left the deen after a while. And I think it was some of the people that I was around made me start questioning whether I wanted to be Muslim or not because of the behavior of other people. So that happened. I took Shahada in June, and by August I was debating, do I want to stay in this or not? Because this is not me. All this fitna, all this stuff that's going on, it's not something that I want to be involved with. So I said, if this is what Islam is about, I don't want to have any part of it. And at the same time that I said that, the next second, it was like there was a voice that came and said, don't give up. Like, why are you deciding that even if you're having a struggle or having a hard time, why is the decision to leave? Why don't you just stay with it and see if it works out? So that's what I did. And in my head, I was like, I don't even know if I'll be Muslim for 5 years. I doubt it, because I can't deal with this type of behavior. And so I said, okay, instead of leaving, let me try and stay and see if I can, manage this. And I made dua, and I asked Allah to send me some sincere people, some practicing people, some people I can get along with. And since I made that dua, ever since then, Allah's just been blessing me with some really, really amazing people. So as far as my own personal conversion, my immediate family, my closest friends, I haven't had any issues. Sometimes there's comments made, there's things that are said, but then you learn how to deal with it. It's really been dealing with people outside of that circle, dealing with other Muslims, and the ignorance. I have to just say, it's really dealing with the ignorance of a lot of Muslims, that if it wasn't for the fact that Allah is so real, and the Quran is so sound and the Ahl Bayt are who they are, I probably would have left the deen. I think what happens is when you look at Muslims, I guess the external appearance, I think a lot of people, and I guess myself included, had the impression that Muslims were very committed people, very disciplined, very practicing, very focused, very much into their religion. And the perception from the outside almost is that these people, like I said, are very, very sound and on point with their deen, with their religion. And then you come to find out that that's not the case. That's really not the case. And it really shatters your perception. And I mean, it's not that all the Muslims are asking to be placed on this pedestal. It's something that happens because, like I said, when you're on the outside looking in, the perception is these people don't drink, they don't smoke, you know, they don't eat pork, they're very careful about their diet, and, you know, they're praying all the time, they don't go to clubs, they don't do this, don't do that. And that's not the case at all. I think, and you get this, when you read the Quran, when you read about the lives of the Ahl Bayt, when you have this sense of who Allah is, and this monotheistic view of Allah, you think that you're not going to encounter racism and chauvinism and sexism and any other ism that you can think of. And, you know, the more you involve yourself in the community, you come to realize that that's not the case. And you have to let the barriers down and face the reality that these are people just like anybody else, and they got their issues. They really, really have their issues. And don't look at Muslims and expect to see Islam within them. Look at the Quran, look at the Ahl Bayt, and look at Allah, and that's where the deen is. And if Allah decides to bless you, He will bring you people who you need to be surrounded with if you're striving to be sincere. And I think that's because there's and that's why I say that I'm blessed, because every revert that I know has a story of rejection or isolation or abandonment or pessimism. Some people will say, some people have said, well, you know, that's a revert's problems. You guys have your own issues. You know, you guys got to deal with it. But I'm saying there's something going on here, because whether I talk to reverts in Ottawa, Toronto, any part of the States, the UK, anywhere in the world, Australia, everybody has stories, and they all have the same stories or very, very similar stories. The themes are the same. So I'm like, what's going on here? This doesn't make sense. It can't be an aberration if everybody across different continents is experiencing the same type of pressure from within the community. So what happens is you find Islam, you do your research, or however it is that Allah brings you to the deen. And there's an understanding, especially now after 9/11, that people are not crazy about Islam. It's not like the number one religion or the number one pick automatically. But when you start to do investigation and start to do research, and you start to realize that Islam is other than how the media portrays it, that's what attracts you. When you start to find out about Allah and the Quran, that's the magnet, and that's what pulls you in. But then you have to deal with the reality of, I might lose my family, I might lose my husband, I might lose my kids, could lose my job, could lose all my friends, I have to change the way I dress. Like, it's a whole process of revolution and a whole process of change. Because you change the way you dress, you change the way you eat, you have to learn how to pray now, because you can't just pray like this. You have to actually do something that's a ritualized form, and it's an established form at particular times. And you have to get into the mode of changing your lifestyle around so that it meets the times of Salah, so you can incorporate your prayer into your lifestyle. The fasting, same thing, eating halal meat. All of this stuff is a big change. And then the reality, like I said, of your social circle leaving. So your family and your friends are like your net or your safety net. And then someone tells you, I'm pulling your safety net away. And then you're saying, okay, no problem, pull my safety net away because the Islamic community is there, they're going to support me. The Islamic community is like, no, we ain't supporting you either. So then you just fall, right? So it's to be able to deal with the bumps and the bruises from that fall and decide, do I want to keep getting hurt? Or do I want to, get up, allow myself to heal and continue? Or some people are just like, no, I ain't interested. I can't do this, I'm out. This is not worth it. So they leave the deen. And I personally think that the Muslim community is going to be accountable for all of those people that leave the deen. I think Allah is going to come and ask, what did you do? I'm the one who brought that person into the deen, and I sent them to your center, and you treated them like you're accountable. There's just so many issues. I didn't expect to encounter the racism that I did. People will accept you to a particular point, and then you can call people out. You can call people out, especially when it comes to marriage. That's when you get to see, and that's what I call the mashallah theory. Because people are like, oh, subhanallah, this person converted to Islam. He's like, mashallah, mashallah. Oh, look at this sister, she became Muslim and she's wearing hijab. And it's like, mashallah, mashallah. Oh, look at this brother, he became Muslim and he recites Quran beautifully, and it's mashallah, mashallah. But then when that same brother goes to a family and asks for the daughter's hand in marriage, astaghfirullah, what are you talking about? No, we'll find you somebody from your community. No, you can't marry my daughter. So it's like all these mashallahs, all of a sudden, like, so what are you telling me? Really, it's worth nothing. I had this sister, she said to me, oh sister, did you converted to Islam? I said, yeah. She said, oh, that's amazing, subhanallah, Allah guided you to the deen, alhamdulillah, you're going to Jannah, this is great, and this and that. And I said, and you, when did you convert to Islam? Astaghfirullah, I didn't convert to Islam. No, I'm born Muslim. Okay, so why was it okay for me to be a convert? And then when I posed the question to you, all of a sudden, like, that's something that's unworthy, and not like, don't put that on her. I'm like, please be real. That's one thing that I can't deal with. Islam has the answer for every single problem from A to Z, right? And you read the treatise of rights by Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, right? About the rights that your brother has upon another brother, right? So you know that you as a Muslim who knows more, whatever it is that you know, it's incumbent upon you to take that knowledge, even if it's a little bit, and share it with another person. So if Muslims practice Islam, if Shias practice Islam, if Shias actually followed the alphabet, the entire world would be Muslim. Everybody would be Muslim. Because how can you deny or not recognize the akhlaq that they portrayed and that they embody? And if you incorporate that into your own lifestyle, there's no way you cannot affect the life of somebody else. And if nothing else, the media would not be able to play this game with Muslims and the rest of the world and try to give this image that Islam is like this. Because people would automatically say that's not correct, because I know a Muslim who's like this. I know sister so-and-so who works with me. I know this guy who works at the gas station. The person who served me at the store. They're all Muslim, and this is not the behavior of Muslims. But we always have this thing where we have to keep coming out and telling the media, no, we're peaceful. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he says the best form of dawah is to close your mouth and to use your actions. So you shouldn't have to say anything. You shouldn't have to be trying to convince people that Muslims are like regular people and that we're peaceful. It should be apparent through your actions. Your neighbors should be able to say, you have a problem, go to this apartment. That person will help you. Why? Because they're Muslim. Same thing again, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he says that when you live in a community, a town or a village of 100,000 people, Some narrations say 10,000, others, most of them say 100,000. You should be known as a person who's generous and helpful. That means your reputation should be so pristine that if you're in a population, 100,000, think about it, that's a lot of people. That your reputation should be known, that people have any problem, this is the household to go to get. And you're guaranteed that when you come from that house, your problem is solved. When I come in, right, if I give salams, for you to return salams. That's the basic thing. So sometimes people think, oh, we have to establish classes for reverts, we have to, we have to have these special programs for reverts, we have to do this. People need to understand, you don't have to bend over backwards. This is a basic thing will make somebody feel like they're welcome. The thing that you want to establish is that when this person comes into the masjid, they want to come back. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that the person needs you to do something, like they need you to support them, give them money, or they need this from you, or they need that from you. They just want to know that when I come into the center, I give salam, somebody's going to respond to me and not be like this. Especially on the women's side. Let me tell you, sisters are rough with each other. And it seems like there's this automatic fear that you're coming in there to take over their husband or something. That's not the case. I just, Assalamu alaikum sister, wa alaikum salam, how are you, da 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 da. That's all you need. Me personally, just be friendly. Give me a smile. You're doing zakah, right? This is what it needs. That's what I'm saying. If Muslims practice Islam, and it shouldn't just be because this person's a revert, should be the behavior that a Muslim exhibits to anybody. So this is really one of the biggest complaints of reverts is the treatment that we get. I want to come into the center and I want to be able to just sit down and be able to not have everybody staring at me and looking at me and thinking I'm an agent and are you working for the FBI? Are you sent here by the CIA? You know what? I told a group of people one time, I said, the FBI and the CIA, they're not stupid. They're not going to send somebody into a center to infiltrate and to spy who looks opposite of the main congregation. They're going to send somebody in who looks like you. So if anything, when I walk in, you should be happy and feel comfortable with me. Because the FBI and the CIA are not that dumb, right? So you should be like, okay, Sister Fatima, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, sister. It's good. We should learn how to respect each other. This is practice Islam. I mean, Fatima Zahra, alayhi salam, she said, don't embarrass us. But we seem to be doing this. We don't treat each other with the basic form of respect. There's a reality that English is a universal language. We need to have programs in English. If it's not, and it's not just about meeting the needs of reverts, it's the next generation also needs to understand Islam in their own language. I mean, if you talk to the youth, they're lost, a lot of them. They don't understand what the importance of Karbala is and what it has to do with today. A lot of them don't get it. I was at a youth retreat a couple of years ago, and this one brother, he said that he thought that the day of Karbala happened over 10 days. And I was like, or this, Ashura happened over 10 days. And I was like, how did you think that? He says, because the way the scholars come and speak, they take a theme and they speak about that theme, and then they take an aspect of Ashura and they talk about it over 10 days. He goes, so I automatically thought Ashura was an event that happened over 10 days. And I was like, no, it was one day. He was like, I didn't know. I had no idea. This is a basic disservice that we're doing even to our own selves. I mean, if you want to forget about reverts, but our own selves, what we do to our youth and how we confuse them and, things that don't make sense. Classes, they would be good, but classes that are relevant. A lot of things are irrelevant. A lot of things, they're not connected. It seems like we're in a time warp. If you look at churches, and I can't speak for synagogues, but I do know for churches, and I saw this probably about 15 years ago, there was actually, let's say Tuesday night, Christians struggling with HIV. And I was like, wow. Why? Because it's a reality. It doesn't mean that people are running around with all different types of people, because you can contract HIV from different ways. This is a reality, this is something that's going on. And people are saying we have to recognize it. Instead of trying to pretend like it doesn't exist, mental illness is another thing that we pretend it's not there. Sexual abuse, it's happening in the community. We don't want to talk about this. It's not going on. Let's talk about quiet. It's like we give ourselves this impression, and we like to keep fooling ourselves that we're followers of Imam Hussein, so we're going right to Jannah. And there's nothing wrong. We don't have problems in the community. And it's like, but when you open up the curtain and you look behind, the wall, you realize we have so many issues, and it's like people don't want to talk about this. Why aren't we talking about these things that are happening on the minbar? I didn't realize at the time, because I didn't understand about all the different schools of thought, but the people who Allah had brought me to were followers of the Ahlul Bayt. So when I took my Shahada, I took it with them, and I honestly believe that that was a path that I had to come to, because I don't think that any other school of thought would have satisfied my intellectual curiosity, would have responded to my questions, and would have kept me grounded the way the Ahlul Bayt has. I really don't think I would have stayed Muslim if Allah would have brought me any other way. I think I would have left by now, because some of the things I've heard about and read from other schools of thought would not have resonated with me.